You're listening to the Hello World Podcast number 66. My name is Sean Wildermuth, and I am your host. The Hello World Podcast is where you can hear from some of your favorite developers, authors, and speakers about how they got started in this business and the decisions they made along the way. We go way back to their first computer, their first code experience, and their first job. We've decided not to have a sponsor for the podcast, but if you want to support the podcast and the kinds of things that I do, feel free to visit my Pluralsight courses at seanw.me/psauthor, including my newest course on building a web app with ASP.NET Core RC1. We're currently on a road trip covering 25 cities in North America and Europe, and we'll be doing live interviews of some of your favorite developers, including Miguel Escaza and Juliac. See hwroadtrip.com for more information on cities and dates. I'm currently in Barcelona, Spain, but a few days ago I was in the lovely city of Mechelen, which is outside Brussels in Belgium, and I got to speak with Bill Wagner, today's guest. Bill Wagner is one of the foremost C# developers and a member of the ECMA C Standards Committee. He is president of the Humanitarian Toolbox, has been awarded Microsoft Regional Director and .NET MVP for 10 plus years, and was recently appointed to the .NET Foundation Advisory Board. Bill currently works with companies ranging from startups to enterprises, improving the software development process and growing their software development teams. As a thought leader on the C# programming language, Bill Wagner has authored 2 books, a bestseller, Effective C#, and More Effective C#. Bill authors training videos through Microsoft Virtual Academy on C# and .NET development. Bill has also written hundreds of technical articles for MSDN Magazine, .NET Developers Journal, Visual Studio Magazine, and many others, as well as actively blogs at thebillwagner.com. I've worked with Bill Wagner recently through the Humanitarian Toolbox. They're doing some great work in ASP.NET Core, trying to help nonprofits do some scheduling for emergency and non-emergency reasons. We actually talk about that a little on today's show. Bill always is a great interview and is insightful and pragmatic, and I think you'll hear that in his story of how he got started. He surprised me even with a first computer that I'd never ever heard of. Let's take a listen. I think you'll enjoy this one. Well, on today's show, we have Bill Wagner, who I'm really excited. We're here at Techorama, which I keep on saying Technorama.
That's a different event.
It is. I can't dance, so they don't invite me to Technorama.
Me either.
Me either. So you've heard of the podcast before. You know what we care about, and I know you as someone who's been in the whole space for just a long time. We've always been at some of the same conferences, and we started working together on the Humanitarian Toolbox stuff.
Yeah,
right?
It's great to see all your help getting us as ASP.NET Core, from ASP.NET VNext to ASP.NET 5 to ASP.NET Core, through all those different builds and changes, helping us keep that project rolling and working on each new API change.
You guys are doing so much. I wish I could contribute more, to be honest with you, but with RC2 of ASP.NET Core coming, it's going to be exciting to see how that.
Yeah, so we're going to have to update it one more time. One more time after that, yeah. But no, it's been really good. I'm really happy with the progress. As far as that app goes now, we have done a pilot with Chicago Red Cross.
That's
They've
exciting.
been happy. Best part about that is from that pilot, we got a whole list of new features where they said, wow, this was great with what we asked for. Now can it do this too? And, that means they're really using it, right?
Absolutely.
And now next month, based on when we're recording this in May, next month we're going to be working with the Red Cross in the Seattle area.
Nice.
And they have a different use case, a different program that they're running, but the same app will work. And then after that, we're going to get the feedback from that one. And then the plan would be, after those 2 pilots, the next release would be one that is going to be certified for any of the Red Cross chapters to use nationwide and then hopefully worldwide. So that's a really, really big milestone for us as an organization, to get an app through this pilot process and have a major charity say, we want to use this, and we're going to use this everywhere we can. So I think that feels really good. And you and others, and we've had volunteers from all around the world.
It's amazing.
Participate. Everybody from, college students and people just learning to do development, to people like you and others that have been in the industry for a long time.
And Rocky's doing some interesting work in that space,
Rocky's been
too.
doing some interesting work, and he's launching what's going to be the third app.
Nice.
And it's starting with a charity in Minnesota whose goal is to help parents, if their children are missing, to make sure that they've got all the records that they need with them to help the authorities find this missing child. And the applicability of the technology for disasters is clear, right? Some disasters happen, whether it's a tornado, floods, or whatever, and you want to help find your loved ones. The biggest thing the authorities are going to need is as much information as you can about, height and weight and age and recent photo, whatever, and having that information right at hand, especially on a phone, which we're probably all carrying.
Yeah.
You think of people leaving a disaster area, the first thing they're going to grab is their phone, because that's contact with others, right? And that, so, that one's going to be quite a bit longer before I think that one's really out, because there's a lot of interesting questions around security and privacy that we have to work with. And having Rocky involved is a big plus, because he understands what those issues are.
Absolutely.
So that's helping us a lot.
For me, working on the Already project, seeing it actually going out into people's hands and doing good, that's, maybe I'm just a liberal, but having code that actually helps people's lives, whether it's in a company or out of a company, just makes me feel better.
Well, and you think about this from our standpoint as a career, we've all written really cool, fun stuff.
Yeah.
And we've also had a lot of projects between those really cool, fun stuff that is, yet another ERP, some kind of enterprisey, do the business system that's useful.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have that same kind of feel-good impact.
Absolutely.
And a nice thing that I really like about our projects and what our volunteers have said is, this is a way I can actually help. One of the best quotes from James Chambers, who's one of the gentlemen that's really helping us on Already,
Absolutely.
is, I can give up an afternoon or a day and do Habitat for Humanity and help build a house. Nobody's going to want to live in it, and I'm going to end up with bruised thumbs and everything else. But if I take an afternoon or a day and I contribute code to this project, that really helps people.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to volunteer, why not volunteer in a way that really leverages the skills I have and really has that kind of positive impact? And I think that's the key with what we're trying to do.
Absolutely.
People have, like Richard has said it on different podcasts, what we do is close to magic for a lot of people. Why not apply that magic to something that helps?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when you got started in software, was it like a lot of people? Did you have a computer as a kid?
I'm too old for that. No.
I don't think you're too old.
We actually didn't have one at home.
Mm-hmm.
So I graduated from high school in 1982. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm up there in my career. And my high school math teacher was the one that really started to get me interested in it. We had about 4 Ohio Scientific 4K basic computers.
Wow.
Right? The ones that ran on the cassette tapes, And what was nice there with this teacher is when you get up into the higher math and you're doing, please solve this quadratic equation 20 times with 20 different sets of variables so it's burned into your brain how to do it. And that was boring. And what he let me do is, okay, if you can write a program to do this homework, fine. You don't need to do the 20 problems. You can do the 20 problems with the computer.
Right.
So I was doing that, whether it was, quadratic equation, finding the 200th Fibonacci number.
Right.
Some of these things that you're just learning how to program. Written all in BASIC, because that's what was on the OSI. And it was fun. And I really liked doing that. It's like that idea that I'm not going to do the same thing by rote over and over and over again. I want to solve new problems, So he sort of turned me onto it.
So your whole career is based on the idea that you were trying to avoid math homework.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
And not trying to avoid it, but try to actually, let's actually do this without just pencil pushing, right? And do that. But actually do it well, right? 'Cause I had to do some of the problems by hand because did my program work, right?
You know, that's how you wrote your tests.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And did I get the answer I expected? And divide by zero and all kinds of fun things when you're doing that kind of math. So that helped. And then when I was getting ready for college, I was going to major in mechanical engineering.
Oh.
And the first semester there, and this was at the University of Illinois, and while I was there at the first semester, the intro engineering course had a fair amount of software and trying to learn how to do that, as well as some of the other engineering disciplines. And I was just sitting there going, I just really enjoy the software so much more. So I switched majors to software, to computer science, and went on from there.
Wow. Yeah. And did you find an affinity with a language that you sort of loved for a long time, or were you one of these sort of guys, the language didn't matter as much as the problem?
Well, you know, I've always had strong opinions about the languages that I've used. Mm-hmm. So in college, at different times, our first courses were in Pascal, which was designed to be a teaching language. Mm-hmm. And then all the systems courses were in C.
Right.
The numerical analysis courses were in Fortran, which I never liked. It just never worked for me. It was just like, that's weird.
Well, that's disappointing because NASA's looking for Fortran programmers. So.
Yes. Maybe we should teach them .NET. That would help. They could do that in F#. And then we went on to, let's see, the other ones we did. There was one in Path Pascal, which was a variation of Pascal to do multi-threaded simulations.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was just starting to become a thing. You know? And a little bit of assembly. First jobs were in C, and then later C++, and then did a little bit of Java for probably about 2 years, and professionally doing mostly C++ since then. Some JavaScript, and then now TypeScript as well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So I think of you in the sort of C# space.
It's definitely the language I like the most.
Oh, okay.
But I think at least of the professional languages around right now.
Sure.
Right? There's things I really like about TypeScript. Swift has got some super cool things as far as the design in a language. I think if you want to really have an affinity for a language, you need to learn several, just because you have no idea what else is out there.
Absolutely.
And you look at things like, you can look at where C# sits, similar to Java, similar to C++, trying to address some of the problems we had programming in C++, just like Java did. And in some ways, then, you look at when Link came into C#, and we're adding all these concepts from functional languages, which if you've never seen Lisp or you've never seen Haskell, make no sense.
Right.
But if you've seen some of those and they start to make sense, and you go, wow, this is really cool.
Right.
And then you see JavaScript, which took a different route into a functional paradigm and then starts adding objects. And then you see TypeScript, and you see how they're doing things. And then, as I said, then you look at Swift, which has introduced some really nice new innovations that I think are really sweet. And by seeing some of those, I did a little bit. I never used Ruby professionally, but I played with it a little bit. Same thing with Python. I never did it on a professional project. Played with Python. And by seeing some of those, you can express and you can talk about your favorite language better.
Yeah.
Like, why do you actually like it? And I think people who only program in one language, why do you like that language? It's the only one I know.
Right.
So I think having exposure to these other paradigms really rounds out your skill set and really helps you appreciate what you like best about the language you use.
Excuse me.
It's good timing.
Good timing. So, when you were leaving college, did you start with jobs directly out of college or even during college that programming?
I really wasn't programming in college. The college jobs I had, I worked at Green Giant over the summer. Mm-hmm. So factory jobs on vegetable production.
Right.
Which was cool for making money for school because it's a summer job.
Right.
And then went back to school. I did some stuff that involved computers there, but that was kind of like programming Lotus 1-2-3 spreadsheets.
Sure.
Because they were trying to keep track of some things and do some calculations around the agriculture business and so on. So programming, sort of, not really. After college, I worked at Bell Northern Research, which was the research arm of Northern Telecom, which was the product arm of Bell Canada, which doesn't exist anymore. But the idea was there was a lot of things involving network software.
Oh, nice.
At an early point in time in terms of phone telephony, data along the phone lines and some of that. And it was really innovative for its time.
Because that would have been what, late 80s, early 90s?
Late 80s into the 90s. Mid 90s, early 90s, I started working as an independent, doing all kinds of different fun stuff.
So let's go back to when you were at the research group.
Yeah.
One of the things in my career as I moved on that was important was I had a lot of these technical skills, but I didn't have any of the social skills it requires to be a programmer. Did you learn those at college? Did you learn those in those early jobs?
Wow.
Did you ever learn them?
I'm not sure I ever learned them. No, I think, my dad was a manager at Green Giant in Colesbury and had teams of people working for him that numbered in the hundreds.
Wow.
And honestly, I think that's where I learned most of my people skills.
Interesting.
And when I was working at Green Giant, I was working with some of the people that worked for him in different places. And the people who worked for him really respected him. And in a real personal way, not just, gee, he's my boss, but he took care of his people. He was really good with them. That's probably where I learned a lot of that.
Interesting.
It was just doing that and then applying it at different places where I've worked.
Interesting. Did you have early mentors that were particularly fruitful, whether programming or whatever?
Yeah, some in different parts of the industry. Worked with, there were a couple people at BNR that really helped me. A guy named John Sagan, who stayed with the company but was really, really adept at knowing where the industry was going and trying to push our group and the groups we worked with in the direction the industry was going. Then, as I became an independent, Richard Hale Shaw, who some people who listen to you may remember, helped me quite a bit as I was starting to do writing for magazines. He took a gamble and made me the C++ columnist for VCDJ.
Oh, wow.
When he started the magazine in 96, 97.
Yeah.
And he just said, I'll help edit, I'll help work with some of that. So just keep feeding ideas and keep learning. And he was really good to help me with a lot of that as well. Same thing with starting to do some conference speaking.
Nice.
He helped me with that quite a bit as well. And then introduced me to a lot of other people that have helped over the years. Jeff Precise. Introduced me to Scott Myers, which is when I wrote Effective C# and More Effective C#. And Scott's reviewing technique is legendary. Now, he's incredibly thorough, and he's also very, very particular, to the point where one of the first drafts of one item, that was the first item, is like, see if you can write in the style he wants. So I submitted this one item of guidance that was probably 4 pages of manuscript. I got back 15 pages of comments.
Wow.
And none of them were, that's really good.
Right.
That was not a single one of them. But, all very actionable things that I could work on and get better at. And one of the best moments I had was when I was working on More Effective C#. One of the items, when it went for his review, comes back, and at the end of it he wrote, this was really, really good. I'm like, wow. That's
you
just
got him to say that.
And that was the only comment on this 7-page item.
Wow.
Well, I've learned a lot here. That's good. So, I've actually been lucky enough to have a lot of mentors that have helped me along, both in speaking and in writing, learning to deal with other people in different ways. Getting into different communities, like with the MVP program where we're both in, with other RDs that I've met over the years and been in that program. Same kind of thing. It's like all of these really super smart people that really know how to get things done.
Yeah. Was there a moment in your career where you figured out you weren't faking it anymore? Or did you sort of believe that coming out of college?
I think I'm still faking it.
Yeah.
It comes in spurts in different ways. You think you're good, and then because we all have these moments in our career where, we're doing things and we're good at them, but we need to do more things and get better at other things.
Yeah.
Right? So, what I say, like, I'm still sometimes thinking I'm faking it, is, so I'm doing a talk here on C# 7, and I had one, and it was ready, and Mance Torgerson, who's the C# PM, has given me some of his material. So now I'm suddenly doing some of his material. I'm like, can I do the C# PM language guy's material and do it justice?
Right.
Or when we had dev days, there were a couple times when, I would be giving the C# talk, and it's like, well, here's Anders' talk. So I'm giving Anders' talk on C#, and the pressure there is, dude, you will not do better.
No.
For one, don't screw this up, right? But you practice and you try to do your best.
Absolutely.
And, I got good reviews on it, which was nice.
It's always a nice feeling.
Clearly wasn't Anders, but that's okay. And, you keep trying to continue to get better and do things. But I think that's the nature of the business, that it's not static, right?
Yeah.
You go out, and the things I knew 5 years ago, they're relevant and they're experiences, but they're not what I would do today.
But I think that goes way back to the algebra problems when you were in high school, right? I mean, the whole goal was not to repeat yourself in some ways, and that it all sort of layers on top of itself as knowledge that helps you make the next informed decision. Very
much so. And that I think is one of the traits of anybody who's really good in this industry, is if we look at the things we do by hand and we try to figure out how to automate them. And then I think one sign of maturity is to try to figure out, is this ready to be automated yet?
Right.
Or now we could automate it, but it's going to be too expensive and too time consuming, and we don't do it often enough.
Right.
And then as we start getting to where it makes sense, let's start to invest the time to try to automate some of these things, whether it be build scripts or continuous integration, continuous deployment, automated testing. There was a time when we did all of that by hand, right?
Yeah.
And we start to learn, I think we can do this better. And I think that's what we keep doing.
And finding that tipping point where the cost is worth it is actually worth it.
And I think if you look at the leaders in the industry, whether it's in language design, library design, tooling, they're seeing things that we should do using computers first.
Yeah.
And I think that's the trend to keep watching.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you can look at IoT as the same kind of thing, right? Why do I want to get out of the chair to change the thermostat?
Exactly.
It should just know. It should just know, I'm cold, turn up now.
Or with enough data, it should know, right? I mean, that whole... Yeah. I'm still mystified by my Nest because I know that it's collecting all sorts of information that...
Right.
I only notice when it isn't doing it well.
And that's really when technology does the right thing, when you only notice it when it's not working.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, in your career, you've been on this sort of tract of dealing with different sorts of languages. Is there something you wish you had invested in that you didn't?
That I had invested in that I didn't? That's a good question. There's a few things that I wish I'd have had the time to spend more time on.
Yeah.
I would like to be a lot better at mobile apps, and especially having more knowledge of the native APIs for Android and iOS. I mean, I can do some things in Xamarin. There's people who are so much better at that than I am. So that would have been one. That's definitely one of the other big one that scares me more because we're doing more distributed software. I don't think I'm as good at security as I should be.
Oh.
And I keep trying to learn more about that one, but that's a big one.
But that's an interesting one that I almost trust developers that know they don't know everything about security more. Because when I talk to people who think they really have it hammered down, I have a friend in Atlanta who works in more the IT side of security, and I talk to him and I'm like, we're all doomed. We're just doomed.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think it's,
that we're on this very interesting place. So do Do you find that in a career path that you had to make a decision about managing? Because I know you had an independent company for a long time.
That's a good. I've had to make that decision about 4 different times now, and for me, the right choice is to really stay technical. And it's not that I had a lot of trouble managing people.
Sure.
It really depended on the team that I had. When I had really good teams, they were really easy to manage. When we had teams that kind of got thrown together and they weren't gelling, or some of the players were really weak, that's really hard.
Yeah.
But when you've got a good team, it's really easy and it's really fun. But I really missed the technology. So there were probably 4 different points where I got promoted into a project manager. It's like, and that one was really tough because I was doing all the project manager things all day, and then I would go home and write code until I went to sleep. Right. And my wife was kind of going, this is going to stop. One way or another, this is going to stop. Because it wasn't that I needed to for the project, but I needed to be able to spend some time coding, and it was every day.
Wow.
So that one was bad. And it did help me realize, no, I really need to stay with a technical focus for a while. The company was also really fun as it started growing, because a lot of what my role was less about running the company and more about, as we were hiring new developers, my responsibility was to teach some of these people who had just come out of college what professional software development was like.
Right.
And depending on the school and depending on the experience, that could be anything from, you realize this isn't a school project, there will be a release 2.
Yeah.
To we will be using source control, here's how that works, to yes, we are going to write automated tests. I mean, it's just kind of part of that. It's going to be a release 2. We have to keep maintaining this. And yes, you finished this. Now here's what we're going to do next. And especially with really inexperienced developers, they were kind of going, wait, I thought we were done. What's the next new thing? It's like, no, the next new thing is new features on this thing. Wait, no, but really working with them on that and helping them grow to be able to tackle bigger problems and be able to work in larger teams and really build some great software was a lot of fun. But you grow the company and you reach this point where, as one of the main leaders, you find that your role is 100% business development.
Yeah.
So you'd land this cool project and then other people would work on it, because you'd have to go land the next cool project that other people would work on. And that's when it really became a lot less fun. And that's when we ended up selling the company. This was just not fun at all. And
sure.
Honestly, the weird thing was we never found a good salesperson to just take on that business development role and let us as founders, do the focus on the technology side.
Yeah, I bet.
So that was a key. And then since then, I've really been working just on creating materials to help other developers learn. And which is a fun way to scale as a tech person, right?
Sure.
I can teach other developers, and then a lot of people are better than they were, and that's a good way to reach a lot of people and to really have a big impact.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, I'm in the teaching space, so that matters a lot to me. When you were working in these teams, how did you deal with these sort of underperforming people? How do you bring them up, or?
It depends. Because there's all kinds of different styles. There's some people who just maybe have trouble understanding the technology, and you start teaching them new things, and you have to start from the standpoint that what we do really isn't magic. Anybody can learn it, but you have to work with them and help them understand things. People that are downright disruptive, you really have to have some different techniques, even up to saying, this just isn't working. You aren't part of this team anymore.
Yeah.
That's got to be your last resort. And the rule we had as founders was, if we terminated any employee, they should not be surprised when it happens.
Right.
So they've gotten all the feedback that you should have been working on these things for a long enough time, and you know you haven't been working on them.
Right.
This should not surprise you. Right. So that was our rule on that. And that's probably the hardest part of having that leadership position. There's nothing good about that.
No. No, I never want to. There were a couple of times people talked about me taking over teams, and I'm like, well, if I have to do reviews and firings, I don't. That was kind of the wall. And as a an owner of a business, that is the deal.
Yeah, you have to have that. I wouldn't outsource that, in part because, and I always felt bad, like after teaching a course, when the manager would come and go, so who's really good and who's not? And I'm like, I'm not doing that from a one-week course. You know these people better than I do. I'm not doing that.
That's not what we're signing up for.
But I'm like, no. I mean, I will tell you who applied themselves to this week, and I will tell the manager if, so-and-so was sitting there just checking email and never did the labs or never did anything.
Right.
Because that's about the class.
Of course.
Right. But, no, I'm not going to tell you who's getting it and who's not, because I think everybody, their pace is different, and you don't know what they had when they came in the room.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
Well, this has been great. I appreciate you doing the show.
This has been fun.
Yeah, going down memory lane and all that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of fun stuff that I've gotten to work with.
I'm going to have to go look at Ohio Scientific... What was
OSI
it?
Computers,
OSI Computers, wow.
I don't even know when they went out of business, but there
has to be a Wikipedia page. There always
somewhere.
Is. Yeah. Awesome.
Right.
Well, thanks for being on the show, and we'll see you at whatever conference we run into next.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to the Hello World Podcast. Remember, you can subscribe to the Hello World Podcast at hwpod.com.